Hi, my name is Belinda. Here at the museum, you'll usually find me volunteering in our gift shop. But for now, I've made my way to our gallery to tell you what a wicker seat, TWA, and the great Amelia Earhart all have in common. We'll start with that chair right in front of you. If you have visited our audio tour stop 101, titled The Beginning, you'll recall that the Ford Trimotor was the mainstay of TWA's fleet when the airline first formed in 1930. This chair is a passenger seat from one of those early Trimotors. Since every pound counted when flying those early planes, Trimotor seats were constructed of wicker or aluminum. In both cases, they were cushioned and padded, and according to actual passenger accounts, they were pretty comfortable. The chair is one of the early possessions of our museum, and its donor advised us the seat was once occupied by Amelia Earhart. That claim is quite possible because Amelia Earhart was very closely involved with the origins of TWA. Transcontinental Air Transport, or TAT, was formed in 1928 and through a merger became Transcontinental and Western Air, TWA, in 1930. Although existing for just under 2 years, TAT made its mark in commercial aviation history with its air-rail service between New York and Los Angeles. The rail part kicked off the westbound service from New York's Pennsylvania Station. It all was inaugurated on July 7, 1929, and on that day, Amelia was there, in her role as TAT's assistant to the General Traffic Manager. Prior to the train's departure, she stood in the station's grand lobby beside an actual TAT Ford Trimotor airplane, publicizing this new venture. The plane had been trucked to Penn Station just for the occasion. Later that same evening, she boarded the Pennsylvania Railroad's Airway Limited, bound for Columbus, Ohio, to meet up with TAT's first Trimotor headed west. She was among the elite group of the very first passengers to complete the coast-to-coast journey on July 9th. On the last portion of the trip, Amelia and her fellow passengers flew from Kingman, Arizona to Los Angeles on a Trimotor piloted by none other than Charles Lindbergh. Amelia Earhart sitting on a plane flown by Charles Lindbergh. That was quite a piece of history. Did I mention that Charles Lindbergh was also a TAT employee? He served as chairman of the airline's technical committee. Amelia Earhart was much more than a legendary aviator. Born in 1897 in Atchison, Kansas, only about 50 miles away from where you're standing, Amelia was described as an unconventional young girl for those times, likely to be seen wearing overalls and climbing trees. Her early ambition was to work in the medical field. During the First World War, she served as a nurse's aide in a Red Cross hospital in Canada. Upon returning to the United States, she enrolled at Columbia University in New York to study medicine. It wouldn't be long before that would all change. While attending an air show with her father in 1920, Amelia realized that she, quote, needed to fly. Shortly thereafter, she took flying lessons, and the rest is some very well-known history. In 1928, she became the first woman to fly in a plane across the Atlantic, sort of. She was given the task of keeping the flight's log while others piloted the plane. Afterwards, she stated she felt like little more than a sack of potatoes on that flight. She would eventually address that concern by piloting her own plane solo across the Atlantic Ocean in 1932, the first woman to achieve that feat. Amelia would set many subsequent aviation records in a largely male-dominated profession. By the chair is a list of many of those achievements. Feel free to pause your tour to read them. Of special note was her being awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross by the United States Congress in 1932, one of the very few civilians and the first woman to receive that honor. Amelia's work, however, extended well beyond flying. She served as a technical advisor to the Department of Aeronautics at Purdue University. There, she helped encourage women to pursue studies in mechanics and engineering. In 1931, she was elected the first president of the famous 99s. Today, the 99s continues as an international organization dedicated to the camaraderie, education, and advancement of female pilots. She also spoke at scores of conferences and events, encouraging people to embrace aviation and the promises it held for the future. At the upper right is a picture of one of the many times Amelia addressed the public. Here's a short clip from one of those speeches.
In the brief span of 30-odd years, the world has seen an inventor's dream, first materialized by the Wright brothers at Kitty Hawk, become an everyday actuality. Perhaps I'm prejudiced, but to me it seems that no other phase of modern progress contrives to maintain such a brimming measure of romance and beauty coupled with utility as does aviation.
On June 1st, 1937, Amelia Earhart and navigator Frederick Noonan departed the United States for her most ambitious challenge ever, flying around the world. The first 22,000 miles of the planned 29,000-mile journey were often challenging and at times grueling. On July 2nd, with just 7,000 miles to go, they departed Lae, New Guinea, for Howland Island. Later that day, at 7:46 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, Amelia's final transmission was heard by a nearby ship at sea. The plane was never heard from again. Amelia Earhart, Frederick Noonan, and the aircraft were lost forever. The courage and determination that drove Amelia Earhart to her high levels of achievement are best expressed in this quote of hers. "To worry is to add another hazard. It retards reactions and makes one unfit. Hamlet would have been a bad aviator. He worried too much." It's been my pleasure to share the stories of this small but very significant corner in our museum. We at the museum are very proud of Amelia Earhart's achievements and her contributions to the early history of TWA.